The person you think you are is a carefully constructed illusion. Every opinion you hold, every preference you claim, every trait you identify with, most of it was installed before you turned 7 years old. You didn't choose your personality. It was assembled for you, piece by piece, by parents who had their own wounds, by a society that needed you to fit in, by traumas you don't even remember. The self you defend so fiercely is not the real you. It's a mask, a performance, a survival mechanism that outlived its purpose. Carl Jung called this the persona, the social face we show the world. But here's what disturbs people. Beneath that mask, there's someone you've never met. Who are you really? Today, we're going to dismantle the illusion. We'll explore how your identity was constructed, why you defend beliefs that aren't even yours, and what happens when you finally meet the stranger wearing your face. This isn't comfortable, but if you've ever felt like something's off, like you're playing a role you never auditioned for, then everything is about to make sense. The persona trap. From the moment you were born, you received messages about who you should be. Smile more, be nice. Don't cry, be strong. Boys don't show emotion. Girls should be polite. These weren't suggestions, they were survival instructions. Carl Jung understood that every child creates a persona, a mask designed to gain approval and avoid rejection. The persona is what we would like to be, and how we wish to be seen by the world. The problem: you wore this mask so long you forgot it was a mask. You started believing the performance was the real you. Think about it. When someone criticizes your opinions, why does it feel like a personal attack? Because you've fused your identity with ideas that were handed to you. Your political views, your taste in music, your beliefs about success. How many of these did you actually choose after careful examination? Or did you inherit them from your environment and then defend them like they are part of your DNA? The persona isn't evil. It helped you survive childhood. Survival became prison, but what protected you then is now limiting you. And until you recognize the mask, you can't take it off. Borrowed beliefs. Here's a disturbing experiment. Researchers asked people to explain their political beliefs in detail. Not just what they believed, but the mechanisms behind it. How exactly does this policy work? What are the specific steps? Most people couldn't do it. Their confidence collapsed when pushed for specifics. This is called the illusion of explanatory depth. We think we understand things far better than we actually do. Now apply this to your entire identity. You believe you're an introvert or an extrovert. You believe you're creative or logical. You believe you're worthy or unworthy of love. But did you arrive at these conclusions through experience? Or did someone tell you who you were and you just accepted it? A teacher said you weren't good at math, so you became someone who's bad at math. A parent said you were too sensitive, so you learned to hide your emotions. A bully said you were weird, so you spent decades trying to be normal. Programmed. Your identity isn't discovered, it's assigned. And you've been defending assignments you never questioned. If this is resonating with you right now, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what comes next might be the key you've been looking for. But this raises an uncomfortable question. If you're not your beliefs, then who are you? The shadow self. There's a version of you that you've rejected. Every trait you were told was unacceptable didn't disappear. It went underground. Your anger, your selfishness, your sexuality, your ambition, all the parts that didn't fit the persona got pushed into what Jung called the shadow. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's everything you could be but were told you shouldn't, that aggression you suppressed. It could be assertiveness, that selfishness you denied. It could be healthy self-care, that darkness you fear. It might be the passion and intensity you've always lacked. Here's how the shadow reveals itself. In your judgments. The things that irritate you most in others are often qualities you've rejected in yourself. The person you hate might be showing you yourself. When someone's confidence bothers you, ask yourself, was I punished for being confident? When someone's emotional expression annoys you, consider, was I taught that emotions were weakness? You're not seeing them clearly. You're seeing your own disowned parts projected outward. Projection is confession, and until you reclaim these parts, You'll keep fighting yourself and other people. False memory self. Your memories aren't recordings. They're reconstructions. Every time you remember something, your brain reassembles it from fragments, filling in gaps with assumptions, emotions, and current beliefs. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated this in disturbing experiments. She could implant entirely false memories in people, memories of events that never happened, simply by suggesting them repeatedly. Subjects would swear under oath that these fabricated experiences were real. Your autobiography is part fiction, and you don't even know it. Now consider what this means for your identity. That defining childhood moment you keep referencing. It might not have happened the way you remember. That story you tell about who you are based on what you've experienced. It's been edited, dramatized, and rewritten countless times. Your self-concept isn't built on facts, it's built on stories, and you're both the author and the unreliable narrator. This is terrifying at first, but it's also liberating, because if your past isn't fixed, if the story can be rewritten, then the meaning you've assigned to your experiences isn't the only meaning available. You're not trapped by what happened to you. You're trapped by how you remember it, and memories can be reframed. But this leads us to something even more fundamental, the ego defense. Your ego is not your enemy, but it is a liar. Freud identified a series of defense mechanisms the ego uses to protect itself from uncomfortable truths. And these mechanisms run constantly in the background of your psyche. The ego is not master in its own house. Rationalization. You didn't get the job because the interviewer was biased, not because you weren't prepared. Denial. Your relationship is fine, those red flags don't mean anything. Projection. He's the angry one, you're perfectly calm. Displacement. You yell at your kids because your boss humiliated you. These aren't character flaws. They are automatic programs designed to maintain the illusion that your self-image is accurate. Self-image over self-truth. Your ego would rather be consistent than correct. It would rather maintain a false identity than face the discomfort of change. This is why personal growth feels like dying, because in a very real sense it is. Ego death. The old version of you has to die for a new version to emerge, and your ego will fight that death with every defense mechanism it has. But speaking of things the ego hides from you, script autopilot. By age 35, 95% of who you are is a memorized set of behaviors, emotional reactions, and habitual thoughts. Your personality has become automated. Neuroscience confirms this. Most of your daily actions are controlled by the basal ganglia, not conscious thought. You're running on programs. Transactional analysis calls these life scripts, unconscious plans made in childhood that determine how your story will unfold. If you were told you'd never amount to anything, there's a script running that seeks failure. If you learn that love requires sacrifice, there's a script that attracts partners who drain you. Your unconscious is writing a story, and you're just acting it out. Eric Berne, who developed this theory, found that people would sabotage their own success to stay consistent with their script. They'd reject promotions, destroy relationships, and create chaos, not because they wanted to suffer, but because suffering was familiar. The script demands you play your role until the end. Think about the patterns in your life. The same relationship dynamics playing out with different people, the same financial struggles recurring, the same emotional reactions triggered by similar situations. That's not bad luck. That's the script running, and until you identify it, you'll keep performing it. So how do we rewrite the script? The observer self. There's a part of you that's been watching all along. When you're angry, something in you notices, I'm angry. When you're anxious, something observes, there's anxiety happening. This is what philosophers and contemplatives call the observer, the awareness behind your thoughts and emotions. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes the thoughts. This is crucial. If you can observe your thoughts, you cannot be your thoughts. If you can watch your emotions arise, you're not identical to those emotions. There's a witnessing presence that remains constant while everything else changes. When you were 5, your body was different, your beliefs were different, your memories were fewer, but that sense of I am was there. Awareness never changes. The observer doesn't judge. It doesn't react. It simply notices. And the more you strengthen your connection to this observing awareness, the less you're controlled by the automatic patterns of the persona and the shadow. This is the beginning of genuine freedom. Not freedom from thoughts and emotions, but freedom from being completely identified with them. You are not the clouds. You are the sky through which the clouds pass. But knowing this intellectually isn't enough. There's a practice required to make it real. Identity decoupling. The philosopher Alan Watts described the human condition as a case of mistaken identity. We think we're the wave, forgetting we're the ocean. The wave rises, takes a form, and is terrified of crashing because it thinks that's the end. But the water doesn't disappear. It was never separate from the ocean. Your identity, your name, your story, your personality is the wave. Temporary, conditional, always changing. But awareness itself, that's the ocean. Here's a practical approach. Catch yourself saying, I am followed by any label. I am a failure. I am anxious. I am bad with money. Every I am statement is a spell you cast on yourself. Replace it with, I'm experiencing failure right now. There's anxiety present. I've had challenges with money. The shift is subtle but powerful. You move from fusion to observation, from imprisonment to flexibility. You stop being the problem and start being the one who can work with the problem. Buddhist psychology calls this non-attachment to self, not that you don't have a self, but that you hold it loosely. You wear the mask without forgetting it's a mask. Wear the mask lightly. You play the role without losing yourself in the performance. But what happens when the mask starts to crack? Authentic emergence. The process of meeting your real self isn't comfortable. Psychologists call it ego dissolution or ego death, and it often feels like falling apart. Depression, anxiety, confusion, loss of meaning, these can be symptoms of the old identity dissolving. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. What feels like breaking down might actually be breaking through. The caterpillar doesn't improve into a butterfly. It liquefies. Its entire structure dissolves into chaos before reorganizing into something new. You might lose friends who only knew the mask. You might lose interest in things that used to define you. You might feel like you don't know who you are anymore. Good, because you didn't know who you were before either. You just thought you did. The authentic self doesn't arrive fully formed. It emerges through a process of subtraction. You remove what isn't you, the conditioning, the borrowed beliefs, the false stories, and what remains is closer to truth. Becoming yourself is an act of uncovering, not construction, not building a new identity, discovering what was always there beneath the masks. So what does it actually look like to live this way? Living unmasked. Living authentically doesn't mean having no personality. It means holding your personality loosely. You still have preferences, opinions, and patterns, but you know they're not the ultimate truth about you. You can change them without feeling like you're betraying yourself. The Dalai Lama was once asked why he laughs so freely. He said something profound. I have an opinion, but I'm not attached to it. That's the goal. Having a self without being imprisoned by it. Freedom is flexible identity. Practically, this looks like pausing before reacting, questioning beliefs you've never examined, noticing when you're defending an image rather than expressing truth. It looks like being willing to say, I don't know, I was wrong, I've changed my mind. The strongest self is the one that can die and be reborn each moment. This isn't about becoming nobody. It's about becoming nobody fixed. A flowing process rather than a frozen statue. The person you were yesterday doesn't have to be the person you are tomorrow. You can keep the parts that serve you and release the parts that don't. You can try on different masks without believing any of them is your face. You can finally meet yourself, not as a story, not as a performance, but as the living awareness that was never lost, only forgotten. So here's the truth you now carry. You are not your name, not your story, not your personality, not even your memories. These are costumes the awareness wears. Useful costumes. Necessary costumes, but costumes nonetheless. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. The persona protected you. The shadow held your rejected power. The scripts gave you structure. None of it was wrong, it was survival, but you've outgrown survival mode. Now it's time to thrive. The question isn't who have I been? The question is, who am I choosing to become? Not based on conditioning, not based on other people's expectations, but based on the direct encounter with your own awareness. Meet your real self. This isn't a destination. It's a practice. Every day you notice the masks. Every day you question the stories. Every day you return to the observer that was never fooled by any of it. If you made it this far, comment unmasked if you're ready to stop being who you were told to be. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this shifted something in you, subscribe for more. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime.